Huan, carrying the two little cubs, nimbly ran out of the Hall of Joy and headed straight for the grassy area by the lake, ready to enjoy a good sleep with them. Last night, Chengyu had tormented her relentlessly, only finally stopping almost at dawn. Initially, she had certainly been the one in charge, and she'd had a wonderful time. However, just as she was feeling satisfied and wanted to sleep, he actually turned the tables, pinning her down on the bed and spanking her. Oh, for heaven's sake! She was supposed to be enjoying herself. And then what happened? She finally understood. This Chengyu, on the surface, appeared noble, cold, and untouchable, but in reality, he was incredibly lustful, and he deliberately teased her every day, not letting her have meat. Yet, when things got serious, he was fiercer than anyone. She just couldn't understand. Was teasing a tiger really that fun? And he even dared to mock her as useless. Humph. She'd make him understand what tiger-like might meant one day. Whoa. Huan lay on the grass, muttering to herself. Just as drowsiness was setting in, the two little cubs woke up, enthusiastically howling around her. Huan casually scooped up Yuan, cuddling and stroking it in her arms. The little one, only palm-sized, always trotted eagerly behind its brother, around its papa and mama. But compared to its brother's domineering nature, the little one was clearly much more well-behaved. It now lay softly in her embrace, allowing her to gently stroke its ears. Seeing this, the brother also wanted to climb up. The little white tiger leaped up, its pink paws tugging at her collar, its small head nuzzling and rubbing. Huan's heart melted, and her sleepiness vanished instantly. She sat up and hugged the two cubs, giving them big kisses. Her cubs were so adorable. How could you give birth to such cute little tigers? Huan's mood brightened instantly, and she kept petting the two cubs without stop. Where do you think the palace master went? Huan was enjoying herself when she suddenly heard the voices of Wu Shi and others not far away. The palace master loves to play by the lake, so she must be nearby. By the way, have you noticed His Eminence really dotes on the palace master? Su's voice was full of envy. She had truly been choked by their public displays of affection this morning. No matter how much mischief the palace master made, His Eminence never laid a hand on her. Although his expression was cold, he was incredibly patient with the palace master, and from the palace master's sleep-talking, one could tell their bedroom life was also quite blissful. Don't let our palace master's carefree demeanor fool you. She's got a knack for flirting with men, Wayne said leisurely, pulling out a handful of melon seeds from her pocket. You just watch, His Eminence will surely be completely under the palace master's thumb in the future. That's not necessarily true, Su Ruffing interjected from the side, refuting. You didn't see how the palace master was scolded by His Eminence yesterday. Ear in hand, she looked exactly like a dejected white tiger facing the old madam. The old madam was Huan's biological mother, Jian. In the past, the palace master feared nothing under heaven, only fearing the old madam pressuring her to have children. Later, due to the palace master's stubbornness, the old madam, in a fit of pique, secluded herself deep in the mountains, vowing never to interact with the palace master again in this life. It was unknown if her anger had subsided now. If the old madam were to see the two little masters, surely even the greatest anger would melt away into cuteness. I still think our boss is superior. Wayne insisted on her opinion. She didn't believe her boss would be completely dominated by a mere man. How about we make a bet? Su suggested enthusiastically, seeing them sticking to their own opinions. Let's bet on who will ultimately dominate whom between the palace master and His Eminence. I'll bet on the boss. Wayne tossed out a top-grade ruby, making her wager decisively. Seeing this, Su Ruffing also pulled out a spirit stone of the same grade. I'll bet on His Eminence. Su looked at the two of them, thought for a moment, and finally said, Then I'll also choose His Eminence. Mainly because His Eminence had peak combat power. She feared her own palace master wouldn't be able to keep him in check later. Aishi Jiejia. Yexian, what about you two? Wuxi initially didn't want to participate in such a childish game, but Su insisted on dragging her into the vote, so she reluctantly took out a jade green spirit stone. I choose Huan. I also choose the palace master, Wu Shixing quickly added. Regardless, she had quite a bit of confidence in the palace master. After all, the palace master was the woman who had once forcibly asserted her will over His Eminence. Oh, you lot. How dare you gossip about me behind my back like this? Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. Huan abruptly leaped out from the flower bushes behind, her peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed as her gaze turned to Su and Su Ruffin. Especially you two. You actually think I'd be completely dominated by a man? Are you trying to infuriate me to death? Su quickly chuckled in explanation. Palace master, please don't be angry. We were just playing around. It's not to be taken seriously. Huan rolled her eyes at them. Humph, you two backstabbers. Just you wait. Someday, I'll make Chengyu call me ancestor. She quietly listened to her sister's bold declaration and then, somewhat inappropriately, reminded her. Palace Master, His Eminence asked you to go to him. At her reminder, the others also quickly reacted. Yes, yes, His Eminence is looking for you. What does he want with me? Everyone shook their heads. Your subordinates do not know. Huan pouted, picked up the 2 cubs, and walked towards the Hall of Joy. Each of you will copy the palace rules 20 times. I'll check first thing tomorrow morning. No way. Palace Master, have mercy. Huan arrived at the Hall of Joy with a long face. As soon as she entered, she furiously charged towards Chengyu, who was seated at the head of the room. After setting down the cubs, she immediately started to attack him without a word, causing Chengyu to frown. His finger bones grasped her slender wrist. What mischief are you up to now? Huan's eyes were wide as bells, and she shouted angrily. Are you coveting my legacy that you're so diligently managing the Hall of Joy? You want to gather all my subordinates for yourself, don't you? Chengyu's face gradually darkened. Whose gossip have you been listening to? Do I need to listen to other people's gossip? Huan continued to yell. You rely on your magic being a little bit stronger than mine to boss me around, trying to turn the tables and take control. How can you be so scheming and so annoying? She unleashed her temper on him, disregarding everything, like a child whose candy had been snatched away, shouting and crying with a stiff neck and red face. Chengyu's gaze paused. He raised a finger to conjure a barrier around the 2 little cubs. Then, with a slight force of his large hand, Huan fell uncontrollably into his embrace. Let go of me! Let go of me! Huan twisted and struggled desperately, pulling at his lapels and yelling loudly. This dustless robe, I bought it with a hefty sum at auction. I don't want to give it to you anymore. Hurry up and take it off. Chengyu restrained her waist with one hand and gathered her 2 paws together with the other, firmly subduing the tiger, who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. What did they tell you? Chengyu looked at her with deep, unfathomable eyes. Huan heard the head or tail-less question and said impatiently, Who told me what? Let go of me. However, no matter how hard she struggled, Chengyu didn't budge an inch. Only his thin lips parted slightly. You're suddenly so agitated. Someone must have been inciting you behind my back. Is it your sisters? Chi Su or Su Rufeng? Stop slandering them. What does it have to do with them? You think you're so smart, huh? So what if you're smart? I don't want you anymore. Get out of the Hall of Joy. NGH. Before Huan could finish shouting, she felt a sharp pain in her waist. Her mouth immediately flattened, and she nearly cried out, What are you doing? So, in your heart, am I just a male consort to be called upon and dismissed at will? Not as good as Qinyi, not as good as your sisters, not even as important as a casual remark they made. The corner of Qingyu's eye was tinged with a faint crimson, like a fairy's tear mole. Huan's heart constricted, and she couldn't utter another word. Her mind was in a jumble, and she used all her strength to suddenly tumble out of his embrace, running out without looking back. Chengyu watched her quickly fleeing back with deep eyes, a flash of white light crossing his fingertips. Protector Wu, come to the Hall of Joy. Huan transformed into a large white tiger and ran all the way up Wushan Mountain, howling randomly at the peaks below. Only then did she feel a little better. She changed back into human form and sat down against a rock. She didn't know why she had suddenly lost her temper so badly. She had been fine on the way, but as soon as she saw him, her anger flared up, remembering Ah Su and the others' playful bet. Even she couldn't control her own unreasonable fuss. How long had it been? Why were her sisters, one after another, siding with him, even believing and admiring him in their every word? Huan felt very wronged. She used to be the most formidable one, and her sisters especially supported her. But ever since Chengyu arrived, he managed all the affairs, big and small, of the Hall of Joy. Now, even Ah Su and the others have been won over by him. Just because he was a little bit more powerful than her, would she be completely suppressed by him? The more Huan thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. On the other hand, she also felt that she shouldn't have been so impulsive and fierce with him today. After all, during the time he had been managing the Hall of Joy, hadn't the Hall of Joy indeed gotten better and better? Thinking back and forth like this, Huan's mind was in a mess, and she slowly fell asleep leaning against a rock. Upon receiving the order, Wu Shi rushed to the Hall of Joy. She noticed that His Eminence's complexion didn't seem very good and dared not ask too many questions. At His Eminence's signal, she simply recounted what had happened when she met the palace master that day. Chengyu remained silent for a long time, then finally spoke. Understood. You may go back for now. Wu Shi observed his expression, thinking, did His Eminence and the palace master have a quarrel? That shouldn't be. The palace master seemed fine when she left. Why would she quarrel with His Eminence for no reason? However, It was inconvenient for her to ask too much about their private matters as a couple, so she respectfully withdrew. Chengyu's forehead furrowed, his long brows pressing over his eyes, his entire aura turning somewhat cold and gloomy. As soon as he flicked his sleeve, the two little tigers eagerly ran out of the barrier, enthusiastically circling their daddy and calling out in their baby voices. But Chengyu merely glanced at them out of the corner of his eye, then summoned a cloud of mist, enveloping the little ones and heading straight for Wushan Mountain. Huan was awoken by a warm little tongue licking her. She opened her sleepy eyes. The sky was darkening, and it took her a while to realize that two tiger cubs had climbed onto her, licking her cheeks. "Cubs, why are you here?" Huan rubbed her eyes, still not fully awake. The little cubs let out soft meows, and, one on each side, tugged at her clothes, dragging her outwards. Huan followed their direction and saw a solitary white figure standing under the dimming sky. He stood there perfectly straight, with an ethereal demeanor, just as he was back then. The mountain wind was biting, his outline hidden by the night, making his expression indiscernible. Huan suddenly felt a little guilty. Pretending not to see him, she rolled over, curled up her limbs, and silently turned to the other side. She was actually starting to regret it. Wouldn't anyone feel bad after being yelled at so unjustly for no reason? Especially since he was such a proud person. Being treated like a punching bag for her to vent her bad temper, he probably wouldn't want to talk to her again. "Aren't you getting up? Planning to sleep out here all night?" A cool voice, mixed with the evening breeze, floated into her ears. Huan blinked, but didn't move. After a long while, she finally blurted out dryly, "My legs are numb." Chengyu's eyelashes lowered slightly. After a long moment, he seemed to sigh helplessly, then walked over and scooped her up from the ground. "When will you ever be a little less troublesome?" Huan's eyes widened, and she looked at him with a hint of probing. "You're not mad at me?" Chengyu's brow arched slightly, and the corner of his lips curved upward in a very subtle arc. "You even know I can get angry?" Huan drooped her head listlessly. "I cursed at you for no reason today, and was so fierce with you. It's only right that you're angry." Chengyu waved his sleeve, conjuring a wooden chair out of thin air, and sat down with her, facing the cliff. "Not bad. At least this time, you're willing to admit your mistake." The night wind was cool, rustling the trees. Huan snuggled into his neck, blew her nose, and mumbled, "But I still don't understand why you insist on meddling in the affairs of Huan Palace. Do you want to seize all the power from me?" Chengyu looked down at her and retorted with remarkable patience. "Which major decision in Huan Palace isn't made by you? When have you ever seen me bypass you and act arbitrarily? With such a large organization, you laze around every day. Can I manage it for you?" Huan opened her mouth, intending to challenge him, but then thought he made a lot of sense. In the end, she could only mumble softly, "But Su and the others seem to trust you more." "They trust me more, so you got angry out of shame and targeted me?" Chengyu hit the nail on the head. "Your jealousy is so strong. Why don't you use it for proper matters?" "How am I jealous?" Huan vehemently denied. "I'm just a little sad." "You really worry too much," Chengyu said, looking at her puffed-up, dumpling-like face. He sighed very softly and slowly analyzed. "They don't trust me. On the contrary, they're constantly guarding you against me. Otherwise, why would they tirelessly organize every single account book themselves?" "Really?" The more Huan listened, the brighter her eyes became. She immediately perked up, feeling his voice was as comfortable and pleasant as a jade chime. Chengyu's gaze, however, deepened. His pair of dark, faint eyes blended directly into the boundless night, and he suddenly spoke in a different tone. "Perhaps in your heart, only I am an outsider." Seeing his expression, Huan's heart suddenly felt empty, and she instinctively hugged his neck, dutifully saying, You're not an outsider." Chengyu didn't respond, merely stood up, put her down, and then retracted the two cubs into his sleeves. "Let's go back." Seeing this, Huan followed him eagerly, tugging at his sleeve softly and sweetly. Why do you only hug the cubs and not me? Don't you have legs?" "I do, but they're numb." Come on and hug me." Someone pestered him endlessly along the way. When flirting failed, she simply helped herself, clambering up his waist, wrapping her arms around his neck, huffing and puffing, then nestling into his embrace and starting to sweet-talk him. You're the best." Chengyu indifferently lifted an eyelid, mercilessly calling her out. "I wonder who 2 hours ago said they would take back my clothes and kick me out of Huan Palace." "Well, I didn't mean that." "No, I didn't say that, a little rascal did." The line of Chengyu's lips softened like flowing water. "How can there be such a brazen scoundrel like you in the world?" Huan hummed twice. "What's wrong with being brazen? If I weren't a little thick-skinned, could I have tricked you into coming home with me, and even had these two adorable cubs for me? You are my celestial being. Only you deserve Wuchen. I truly love you so much. Once someone's knot in their heart was untied, they reverted to their true nature, incessantly expressing their love, chattering noisily in Chengyu's ear. Behind them, the night deepened. The bright moon hung high, leaving the two of them to walk further and further into the sound of the wind. The next morning, before Huan was even fully awake, Chengyu brought her to Huan Hall, saying that a distinguished guest from the immortal sect was visiting today, and instructing her to receive them properly. Having not slept well for 2 consecutive nights, Huan could barely open her eyes, yawning as she muttered into his ear, "Who exactly is coming? How important are they, that they deserve me, the palace master, to receive them personally?" Chengyu's brush tip paused slightly, and he turned his head to glance at her. "You actually know this person?" "Me?" Huan finally perked up a little. "Are there other people I know in the immortal sect besides you? Who is it really?" Chengyu didn't hide it, putting his brush to the Xian paper and writing 2 characters. "Song Xiang." Huan read aloud, following his brushstrokes, and scratched her head. Why does that name sound so familiar? She racked her brains, thinking and thinking, finally getting some impression, her eyes lighting up. Isn't he that son of Pure Yang? Chengyu looked at her with a half-smile. "It seems you remember quite clearly." Huan grinned awkwardly twice. "Well, that's because he's your disciple, isn't he? You could even say he's our matchmaker." Chengyu subtly withdrew his gaze, discarded the Xian paper he had just written on, and reapplied ink to his brush. "You, since it's your disciple visiting, why aren't you showing up?" Huan asked with some confusion. Chengyu ignored her. After writing a few small characters on the paper with flowing strokes, he gracefully stood up. "If you encounter any difficulties then, respond according to what is written here." "Understood." Huan stretched her neck to peek at the Xian paper, then couldn't help but hug his long leg. "Woo you, you're really too thoughtful." She rubbed against his legs like a large cat, making Chengyu's eyes and brows soften a bit as he kneaded her fluffy long hair with his palm. "All right, let go." Huan grinned, lifted her head, and pouted, demanding, "Kiss me first." Chengyu's fingertips paused. His ears felt slightly warm. "Don't be mischievous." But Huan didn't care. She swayed left and right, rubbing against his legs. "I want to kiss, I want to kiss." Chengyu had no choice. He elegantly lifted her chin with his fingers, leaned down, and bestowed a light kiss. "Is that enough?" Only then did Huan reluctantly let go of him and obediently climb to the main seat where he had been sitting, overjoyed in her heart. Alas, she had been truly awful yesterday, actually targeting Yu like that. Where could she find such a beautiful, virtuous, and powerful supportive partner like Yu? And Yu was so good to her. Originally, he said he'd punish her by making her attend court meetings for a month, but through her tireless efforts in bed, she finally managed to shorten the term to 5 days. It was simply delightful. Palace Master, Immortal Emissary Song has arrived. Just as Huan was enjoying herself, the guard's announcement came from outside. Huan immediately stopped her silly grin, straightened her clothes, and sat up properly. "Let him in." "Yes." A moment later, a young man dressed in an indigo Taoist robe entered from outside the hall. He was tall, with handsome brows and bright eyes, exuding an aura of virility from head to toe. Huan's nostrils twitched. Although the scent wasn't as alluring as Yu's cool fragrance, it seemed quite good too. As expected of the son of Pure Yang, he really has something special. Huan scrutinized the newcomer, habitually giving an assessment. Physique acceptable, handsome appearance, Pure Yang body can double the score. But he definitely can't compare to Yu. Even with the cheat code of a Pure Yang body, it's no match. Her celestial being is the most beautiful. Disciple Song Xiang greets the palace master. Song Xiang, standing below, was unaware of Huan's little thoughts. Being stared at so intently by her, he felt uneasy. Cough. Huan came back to herself. "You're Song Xiang, right? That is this disciple." Huan waved her hand expansively, with a pleasant expression. "Sit." "Thank you, Palace Master." After Song Xiang sat down, he didn't dare to delay, getting straight to the point. "Palace Master, may I ask where my master is now?" Huan immediately became wary upon hearing this. "Why are you asking that?" Song Xiang hesitated for a moment, then, as if having made up his mind, sighed deeply. "Palace Master, to be frank, since Master left, the Xian sect has been in chaos. The martial uncles and aunties are vying for power, refusing to yield, fighting daily for the position of sect leader, not to mention other various forces. If we don't find a way to curb this internal struggle, I'm afraid the Xian sect will be in grave peril." "That bad?" Huan expressed deep sympathy. She should have been happy about the Xian sect's misfortune, but she was always one to cherish beauty. If the other person were an ugly man, she would have long laughed thrice and thrown him out. But But facing a handsome man like Song Xiang, she still had enough patience to offer some comfort. Song Xiangjun, how about I give you a tip? When you go back, just say this. Huan rattled on, making Song Xiang's thick brows gradually unfurrow, and he stood up, repeatedly expressing his gratitude. The palace master is truly resourceful. It was the first time Huan had been praised for her resourcefulness, and she felt a surge of smugness in her heart. It's nothing, really. Song Xiang paused, then continued. Then my master, Don't even think about it. Your master is already my person. He can't go back to the Shin sect with you. While I'm in a good mood now, hurry and leave. Otherwise, be careful, or I might. She didn't finish her sentence, but the threat was implicit. Song Xiang's body stiffened, then he bowed his head. This disciple takes his leave. After the person left, Chengyu walked out from behind the screen without a trace of emotion. Huan, seeing this, immediately grinned and went to meet him. What did I do just now? Chengyu's expression was calm and gentle. Now you're smart, actually offering advice to others. After all, he's your disciple. Huan, sensing a hint of danger, immediately linked herself to him. As his master's wife, I can't be too harsh, can I? Chengyu raised an eyebrow, completely ignoring her words. His cool, jade-like fingers slowly stroked her cheek, his chin slightly lowered. You haven't taken a liking to the pure young body, have you? Huan widened her eyes, shaking her head frantically. No, absolutely not. Indeed, old habits die hard. Chengyu's lips slowly curved into a cold smile. You'd best control yourself, otherwise. Understood. Huan hurriedly raised 3 fingers. Don't worry. I swear I only love you for 10,000 years moi. Ayo. On the grand bed in the sleeping quarters, a certain tiger was still deep in slumber, yet she was surrounded by 2 little white tiger cubs wagging their tails, letting out incessant mewling cries. Huan was sprawled face down in the bedding, sleeping a truly sweet and sound sleep. Finally, Chengyu had business requiring him to go out, and this morning's court assembly was temporarily canceled. Thank goodness, she could finally sleep in. So, by midday, the certain tiger was still sound asleep, to the point that even the 2 little cubs couldn't stand it anymore. They yelped, wanting their mommy to wake up and play with them. Huan didn't even open her eyes, grumpily rolling over and casually batting the cubs away. Cubs, don't fuss. Let mommy sleep a little longer. However, the little ones didn't stop. Instead, they cried even more joyfully. Ayo. Huan reluctantly lifted her eyelids to look at the 2 incredibly lively little rascals. Babies, you're big babies now. You need to learn to drink milk yourselves, play by yourselves, and not always pester mommy. Ayo. No sooner had she spoken than the 2 cubs yelped even louder, stretching their necks and perking up their round ears, crying directly at her. They were clearly tiny, yet they roared with the imposing might of 1,000 armies. This time, Huan was completely deprived of sleep. She haphazardly ran her hand through her hair, then abruptly sat up in bed, staring directly at the 2 little cubs. Ayo. Always just ayo. Can't you 2 be a bit more obedient and well-behaved? Stop making noise. Seeing their mommy actually scolding them, the little tigers instantly felt wronged and angry. They immediately jumped up and cried, ayo woo, intensifying their incessant yowling. My temper, Huan grumbled, rolling up her sleeves and getting out of bed. She stood with her hands on her hips, facing them, and said, All right, so it's a battle of lung power, is it? Today, I'll show you who's still your mother. After speaking, with a whoosh, Huan instantly vanished before their eyes, transforming into a large white tiger. She stood proudly before the window, blocking most of the light. Both little tigers were stunned, staring blankly at the massive tiger before them, completely forgetting to yelp. The large white tiger opposite seemed quite pleased with the effect, letting out a haughty "Ayo-woo" with her neck craned back. This made the 2 little cubs tremble and shrink back, their tiny paws pressed together and shaking uncontrollably. After proudly showing off her might, Huan took a step, preparing to walk towards the little ones. After all, they were her cubs. A little scare was enough. She couldn't let them be frightened into little simpletons. But just as she was about to approach, the 2 cubs started shouting at her again, even more fiercely than before. Especially the older brother, bravely and spiritedly blocking his sister, opened his mouth wide and let out a booming "Ayo." The younger sister behind him, seeing her brother's bravery, also followed suit, standing beside him and yelping with all her might. The large white tiger opposite was momentarily stunned, apparently not expecting to be outmaneuvered. Her entire tiger face puffed up. How infuriating! Could she, the dignified palace mistress of Huan Palace, not even intimidate her own cubs? The big white tiger's whiskers twitched. She stretched out her front and back paws, flattening her entire body, lowering her large head as much as possible to be level with the two little ones, and then, not to be outdone, she began to join them in howling. So, when Chengyu pushed open the door, he witnessed this truly comical scene. One large and two small tigers, 3 in total, were yelling at each other, each cry louder than the last. Especially the big one, sprawled on the ground with all 4 paws together, its large head swaying back and forth. The way it wanted to roar loudly, but also seemed afraid of hurting the cubs, was truly ludicrous. It didn't look like a tiger, but rather a dog. Perhaps the sound of the door opening caught their attention. The 3 tigers of varying sizes all turned their heads. Upon seeing him, they were clearly startled for a moment. Immediately afterward, the large one, as if finally snapping back to reality, quickly darted in front of the small tigers, raising a front paw and letting out an AO-woo as she ran towards him. The large white tiger, agile and majestic, reverted to human form the moment she landed in Chengyu's arms. Before he could even speak, a pair of lotus root-like arms wrapped tightly around his neck, and her small face pressed against his chest, whimpering and crying, "Oh, they're bullying me." The little tigers, utterly bewildered by their mommy's counteraccusation and reverse psychology, narrowed their dark, shiny little eyes. They quickly huffed and puffed as they ran over, mewling in their baby voices, intending to stop their mommy from playing the villain who accuses first. Huan subtly nudged them away with her bare toes, continuing to whimper, You must do justice for me." Chengyu, with one hand, gently pulled away the fainting person. He was genuinely amused by her pitiful, tiger-like expression. "Then tell me, how exactly did they bully you?" Huan blinked, and without a flush or skip beat, said, "They keep roaring at me and won't let me sleep." This time, no sooner had she spoken than she received a rap on her forehead. "You're a grown woman. Why are you still so childish?" Huan instinctively covered her forehead, her dark eyes wide, looking at him with a wronged expression. "How am I childish?" Chengyu bent down and picked up the 2 little tiger cubs, slowly and gently stroking their fur. After soothing each one, he finally let them go out to play. Huan had never seen him so meticulous and gentle before. Her heart fell niche, and she clung to him playfully as if she had no bones. You have to coax me like this from now on, too." Chengyu glanced at her. "Are you a child, too?" Huan giggled. "That's something you wouldn't understand. We tigers are babies until we die. How can you even say such a thing with a straight face? What's there to be embarrassed about?" Huan brazenly leaned closer to him. Where did you go out for today?" Chengyu walked to a nearby spring-fed stream to wash his hands, saying, "Just handled some trivial matters." "Trivial matters?" Huan tilted her head. "What trivial matters? It couldn't be your romantic debts, could it?" Chengyu turned his head and glanced at her upon hearing this, but didn't immediately explain. Huan immediately grew anxious. "It really is romantic debts? What? You're allowed to flirt and cause trouble, but I can't have a female confidant." No. Huan roared furiously. "You're mine alone. No one else is allowed to touch you but me." Compared to her outburst, Chengyu was as steady as Mount Tai. "So, now you know how I used to feel?" Huan's eyes bulged. "You're toying with me?" Chengyu gracefully sat down. "Just teaching you to put yourself in someone else's shoes." Huan snuggled into his arms, grumbling. "Anyway, I don't care. You just can't let anyone else touch you. Otherwise, you won't be my pure and flawless celestial, white moonlight anymore." Chengyu's cool fingers pinched her cheek. "How on earth can you so confidently utter such twisted logic? That's just how it is. In our Huan Palace, men are supposed to uphold husbandly virtues. As for this palace mistress..." Huan's eyes darted around, seeing his increasingly stern expression, and she chuckled awkwardly. Don't worry. With a divine-level beauty like you by my side, I wouldn't even glance at those common, vulgar women outside." Chengyu's eyes narrowed slightly at the corners, his fingertips suddenly tightened, and his thin lips coldly uttered 4 words. "You wouldn't dare." Days passed one after another. During this period, Huan had a lot of fun. Ever since she and Chengyu buried the hatchet, their relationship had also reached a new level. The only annoyance was that Chengyu was never willing to feed her fill, and to restrain her, he personally set a rule. They could only cultivate together 5 times a month, not 1 more. The rest of the time, no matter how she pestered or seduced him, he remained unmoved, like an old monk in deep meditation. Heaven help her, she used to be someone who indulged in intimacy regularly. When had she ever suffered such deprivation? And Chengyu, when he did it, it wasn't just done, it practically took her old life. She just didn't understand. Why couldn't he eat less, but more often? Did he have to wear the tiger out to the point of utter exhaustion before giving up? Humph. He must be deliberately dangling her, not letting her have her fill, making her itch all over and unable to stop. Huan felt indignant and somewhat wanted to go find Lin Yang. She wondered if Lin Yang had any newly arrived handsome man and how they would compare to Chengyu. Alas, she really hoped a man who could rival Chengyu would appear. Although she had already decided to be with Chengyu for life, as a devoted couple, that shouldn't prevent her from appreciating other handsome men, right? Palace mistress. Just as Huan was pondering and strategizing within herself, the voice-transmitting stone at her waist, specially used to contact Lin Yang, suddenly lit up. After a burst of buzzing noise, Lin Yang's excitedly joyful voice came from within. Palace mistress, your subordinate has encountered an absolute gem at the auction house. Incomparably alluring and captivating to all. Come quickly. Upon hearing Lin Yang's transmission, Huan first froze, remaining silent for so long that Lin Yang, on the other side of the transmission stone, spoke again. Palace master? Huan cleared her throat, then said with some difficulty, Lin Yang, I've already promised you a lifetime of monogamy. Isn't it a bit improper to get involved in such matters again? On the other end, Lin Yang clearly paused at these words. A moment later, she said cautiously, then should this subordinate depart? No sooner had she spoken than a prolonged silence ensued. Lin Yang, clutching the transmission stone that remained neither disconnected nor responsive, instantly understood, and launched into an eloquent speech then and there. Palace master, this subordinate believes that, as the head of the palace, you truly need not be so harsh on yourself. Though you are happily married to Lord Chengyu, he is, in the end, merely your primary consort. To promise him a lifetime of monogamy is already the utmost favor. How can you allow that to bind yourself? Moreover, given your deep affection and commitment towards your primary consort, he will surely be understanding, won't he? Upon hearing this, Huan nodded thoughtfully. What you say seems very reasonable. Lin Yang seized the opportunity. Therefore, I urge the palace master to consider carefully, and by no means miss out on such a peerless beauty. At this, a crack resounded as Huan, without another word, slammed the table and stood up. All right, I'll be right there. Make sure you keep that person secure for this palace master. Naturally, you can rest assured with my handling of things, Lin Yang said, her mission accomplished, not forgetting to add a careful reminder. Palace master, remember to bring enough spirit stones, or you won't be able to bid for it. Huan pocketed the transmission stone and rushed frantically towards Wuxi's right hall. As soon as she entered, she loudly exclaimed, Ashi, quick, quick, take all the spirit stones from my private vault and give them to me. At this moment, Wuxi had just concluded the morning court session and was preparing to inspect the various halls when she saw Huan rushing over. Puzzled, she asked, Palace master, what's wrong? Huan, hands on hips, panted, Oh, just don't ask. Just give me the private vault first. Wuxi grew even more bewildered. Palace master, have you run out of pocket money? No, Huan replied, realizing Ashi was an outsider and simply revealed everything. Lin Yang said an exquisite specimen appeared at the auction house, and I want to go join the fun. Wuxi listened, then gave her an extremely doubtful look. Are you sure you're just going to join the fun? Huan flashed a grin. Oh, don't worry, I know my limits. Well, what more was there to understand? Palace master, your revered one toils tirelessly every day, dedicating all his heart and effort to you. Can't you spare him some worry? Wuxi painstakingly advised. Huan puffed out her cheeks and insisted emphatically. I really am just going to look. Your revered one. Wuxi tried to press her point, but Huan unhappily cut her off. Ashi, are you my sister or his subordinate? I've played much naughtier than this before, and I never saw you so verbose. Wuxi looked at the palace master's childish face and silently mourned for your revered one for a few seconds, then truthfully said, Palace master, it's not that I'm unwilling to cooperate. It's just that your private vault was taken over by your revered one a long time ago. Huan's face contorted in shock. When did that happen? How come I don't know about it? A long time ago. Haven't you just never asked? Huan let out a wail. Asterisk, why wouldn't you even spare her private vault? Asterisk. Wuxi seized the opportunity to admonish. Palace master, perhaps you shouldn't go after all. Your revered one is a good person. Forget it, don't say anything else. Ashi, lend me some spirit stones first. Huan had no intention of giving up whatsoever. Wuxi sighed inwardly. It seemed the palace master's scandalous ways wouldn't be changing anytime soon. The old madam was right after all. Huan, this dissolute tiger, finds it easier to change rivers and mountains than her inherent nature. Who knows if your revered one will be able to rein her in the future. Here, this is all I have. Though grumbling inwardly, Wuxi still emptied her purse, assisting her with tens of thousands of spirit stones. Huan happily pocketed the spirit stones and, with a whoosh, leapt far away. Huan, you absolutely mustn't tell Yu about this. Remember to provide good cover for me. To hasten her journey, Huan didn't even take a sedan chair, instead riding the clouds and mist directly to the Dream City auction house. Lingyang had long been waiting at the entrance. Seeing her descend from her flight, she quickly hurried forward. My palace master, you finally arrived? This subordinate spent great effort to convince the owner to allow us an extra half hour. Let's hurry in. We were just waiting for you. Lingyang, you're not pulling my leg, are you? Is it really a top-tier beauty inside? Huan couldn't help but mutter. She had come out risking being flayed alive this time. If she didn't see an exquisite, beautiful youth, she would be angry. Lingyang, full of confidence, said, Palace Master, you must trust this subordinate's judgment. That youth is born incredibly alluring, to the point of being androgynous. Let alone us women, even men who see him would likely lose control. Is he really that bewitching? Huan's eyes brightened, growing even more expectant. Of course, Lingyang replied, equally enthusiastic, for she and her palace master had always been confidants when it came to male beauty. To be honest, many men have participated in the bidding this time. Upon hearing this, Huan strode briskly, eagerly heading inside. She wanted to see just how bewitching the person Lingyang had praised to the skies truly was. The two proceeded unhindered to a private room on the second floor. As they were honored guests of the auction house, their room was excellently situated, directly facing the auction platform, offering an unobstructed view of everything below. Lingyang lifted a corner of the bamboo curtain and made way for Huan. Palace Master, look, it's him. Without needing her to say more, Huan eagerly leaned in. There, in a cage on the auction platform, a completely drenched youth lay half-reclined against the railing. His inky hair fell disheveled across his pale, alluring face, his eyes slightly closed, and his red lips gently parted, like a fish stranded in a dried-up pond, desperately making its last struggles. Lingyang's face was alight with excitement. Palace Master, what do you think? Did this subordinate mislead you? Huan calmly nodded, giving Lingyang some face as she responded, Passable, I suppose. This reaction was quite different from what Lingyang had expected, and she couldn't help but probe, Palace Master, are you satisfied? Of course, Huan said, turning to sit down and taking a sip of nectar. She was naturally satisfied, just not overly amazed. After all, with Yu as the standard, though this youth's looks were on par with Yu's, his temperament was far less captivating. But he had the advantage of novelty. She had been stifled these past few days, so amusing herself with a fresh face was certainly not out of the question. Moreover, she had always had a soft spot for beauty, and encountering such a peerless youth was truly rare. There was no reason to miss him. Alas! Thinking of this, Huan sighed inwardly. As the saying goes, once one has seen the great sea, it's hard to be impressed by ordinary water. Yu was a celestial-level figure. How could she possibly hope that just anyone could surpass him? This was merely for seeking pleasure. A little secret dalliance would suffice. Lingyang, carefully discerning her palace master's expression, spoke only after a long while. Palace Master, then do you think we should still bid for him? Bid, of course, Huan declared with a grand wave of her hand. If this palace master doesn't bid, wouldn't I have come in vain? Got it. Lingyang, receiving the instruction, immediately raised her paddle and began bidding against those outside. The Joyful Harmony Palace's immense wealth was a well-known fact. Many, seeing Huan interfere, instantly lost the desire to join the fun. Only Snake Lord Li Yi, in the private room opposite, persisted tirelessly until he could truly hold on no longer, resorting to sarcastic remarks directed at her. I heard the palace master recently had a grand wedding, and holds venerable immortal Chengyu in especially high regard and awe. If venerable immortal Chengyu were to learn that the palace master came here to hunt for beauties, I'm afraid. What if he knows? Huan chortled. This palace master is the head of this palace. As for you, Snake Lord, it's one thing to have a fondness for men, but to actually dote on young male playthings and specifically live by absorbing others' vital essence. A vile, evil creature like you, this palace master will slay everyone I see. She unleashed her overwhelming aura of power, which in an instant roared like a tiger and cried like a dragon, forcing Li Yi back several steps. A flash of malice flickered in Li Yi's eyes. Ignoring the surrounding whispers, he spun around, transformed into a black mist, and escaped, vanishing without a trace. Huan curled her lip in disdain. What kind of creature dared to make sarcastic remarks in front of her? Aside from Yu, she hadn't lost to anyone, had she? Go bring the person over. Lingyang, who had just recovered her senses from her palace master's valiant display, quickly replied, Yes. Before long, Lin Yang let a person inside. Huan narrowed her eyes. The youth must have changed clothes. What he wore now was a silk-entwined feather robe. Paired with that face, both innocent and bewitching, he truly was an earthly paragon of beauty. Lin Yang discreetly withdrew, leaving only the youth standing there. Huan offered a kind smile and pointed to the wooden chair opposite her. Sit. The youth appeared very thin, with a delicate, frail appearance. However, he was obedient and perceptive, silently walking to the spot she indicated and sitting down. What's your name? Huan, always gracious towards beauties, rested her chin in her hands and smiled at him. Tell me. The youth, as if shy, lowered his head slightly, his voice as gentle as water. This servant's name is Chundan. Chundan. Huan's eyes curved in a pleased crescent. What a lovely name. Chundan's face instantly grew even redder, adding more allure to his already captivating features. He then stammered, his servant thanks master for saving his life. Huan stared fixedly at him. She hadn't expected someone with such a bewitching countenance to have such a gentle and kind temperament. Interesting, truly interesting. Then how will you thank me? Huan, now interested, deliberately teased him. Chundan's red lips mumbled for a long time before he timidly spoke. If master does not disdain, this servant is willing to offer himself in devotion. Huan's smile deepened. Then you must think carefully. I'm a married person. If you follow me, you might forever live in the shadows. Chundan suddenly stood up and submissively knelt before her, his eyes as enchanting as a spirit's. This servant cares not for status. I only wish to serve master with all my heart and strength. Hearing these words, Huan felt a wave of satisfaction. See? This is what gentle consideration is. This is what charming and lovable means. If only you were half as virtuous and sensible, would she still need to be so sneaky? Huan made up her mind. She would keep this youth in a detached courtyard. The joy of keeping a hidden beauty was not merely idle talk. So, after summoning Lin Yang and giving a series of instructions, she prepared to hurry back. Lin Yang was rather surprised. Palace Master, why are you in such a hurry to return? Why not stay the night, allowing Chundan to serve you? Huan coughed twice. This Palace Master is a married person now. How can I not return home at night? This is a matter of principle. Lin Yang's expression turned odd. Having been absent from the joyful Harmony Palace for many years, she was unaware of the true intricacies of the situation. She merely thought the Palace Master had been utterly captivated by Lord Chengyu, not only dismissing her entire harem, but also remaining unmoved by new, beautiful men. But no wonder. Even if she had only caught a distant glimpse of Lord Chengyu's profile, it was enough to hint at his devastatingly beautiful face. It was entirely reasonable for the Palace Master to dote on him more. Rest assured, Palace Master, this subordinate will settle Chundan properly. Huan knew Lin Yang was excellent at handling such matters, so she said no more, hurriedly turning around and rushing back to the joyful Harmony Palace. All along the way, she savored the youth's gentleness and obedience. This was the kind of treatment a Palace Master of the joyful Harmony Palace deserved. Tisk tisk, if only you could be this docile. How much more captivating would that be? Just thinking about it made her feel utterly delighted. Pondering thus, Huan even started humming a little tune. With her hands clasped behind her back, she strode with cheerful steps, head held high and chest puffed out, into the joyful Harmony Hall. However, when she saw the slender figure holding a disciplinary rod in the center of the great hall, she nearly tripped and fell, but with an exceptionally quick reaction, she forced out a smile. Yu, what are you doing? She saw the man, a smile playing on his thin lips, walk unhurriedly towards her. Where did you go today? Huan, beaming, scampered with a thump to Chengyu, carefully avoiding the ruler he held, and enthusiastically wrapped her arms around him in a bear hug. Yu, I just went down a mountain to play for a bit today. Why do you always take out that ruler to scare me? Chengyu stood ramrod straight, allowing her to cling to his waist. His long brows slightly furrowed. Just went down a mountain to play for a bit. Huan nodded vigorously, like a chick pecking rice, and said without a care in the world, I've been cooped up for too long lately, so I just ran around the mountain once. It felt incredibly refreshing. As she spoke, she eagerly suggested to him, Yu, how about I carry you and we run together next time? I promise it'll be more fun than riding clouds and mists. The corner of Chengyu's eye twitched slightly, but his expression remained inscrutable. After a long moment, he put away the ruler, pushed her away, and turned to walk inside. Go bathe in the hot spring yourself, otherwise, no bed for you. Huan was bewildered by this. She didn't smell bad, so why was he emphasizing that she needed a bath? Despite her confusion, Huan cooperatively soaked in the hot spring for half an hour. Then, happily, she climbed into bed, ready to cuddle the beauty, only to find two little creatures on the bed at some point. They were sleeping soundly next to Chengyu, conveniently occupying her spot. Huan was instantly annoyed. Don't these two little cubs have their own nest? Why were they trying to steal her territory? Indignant, she planned to reach out and carry the two little fellows back to their wall. But just as she extended her paw, someone raised a wrist to stop her. Sleep. Huan resentfully stared at his peaceful sleeping face, like a painting, then grudgingly withdrew her hand. After extinguishing the candle, she lay down on the other side of the cubs, muttering under her breath, "Humph, if he won't let me hug him, then he won't. What's the big deal, stingy?" What she didn't see was that in the deep gloom, he slowly opened his eyes. The next morning, Huan received a sound transmission from Linyang, subtly urging her to settle the payment for the spirit stones at the auction house soon. When she first heard the news, Huan was a bit bewildered. After all these years, she had never owed anyone money. It took her a while to slowly realize that to buy Chundan, she had paid the exorbitant price of 100,000 spirit stones. Deducting the 30,000 spirit stones that she had lent her, she still owed the auction house a full 70,000 spirit stones. In the past, this would of course not have been a problem. Although 70,000 spirit stones was not a small sum, her personal treasury was overflowing, and she wouldn't even bat an eye at that amount. But now, her personal treasury was firmly held in Yu's hands, and she couldn't spend freely at all. Huan thought it over carefully and finally decided to take a risk and ask Yu for some pocket money. After all, her lifelong reputation as the palace mistress of Huan Palace couldn't be ruined by mere spirit stones. So Huan sprang up with a carp-like flip, scooped up the two little cubs, and rushed straight towards Chengyu. At this moment, Chengyu was handling official duties in Huan Hall. Wu Shi and others had just finished their morning assembly when they saw a lively figure running in with a clip-clop, clip-clop. She quickly rushed to his side, smiling ingratiatingly at him. "Yu, can I discuss something with you?" Chengyu, his brush never leaving his hand, said, "Speak." Huan patted the heads of the two little cubs, organized her words, and said, "Yu, I'm a bit tight on cash lately. Could you allocate some spirit stones from the personal treasury for me?" Chengyu's brush tip paused. He looked up at her with a half-smile. "How do you know the personal treasury is with me?" Huan instantly froze for a moment, blinking and blinking. After staring at him for a while, she chuckled awkwardly. "Didn't she tell me, of course? Oh, Yu, that personal treasury is my lifeblood. As the dignified palace mistress of Huan Palace, how can I be out and about without money? Just give me some spirit stones." However, no matter how playfully she smiled, Chengyu merely gazed at her, his expression calm, like an older brother who saw through a mischievous child's tricks, his gaze as clear as morning light. "You'd best put away those little schemes, lest the whip falls upon you and you blame this esteemed one for not warning you." Huan slinked out of Huan Hall, her face full of indignation. What's so great about that? All he knows is threatening and intimidating her, occupying her private treasury, not giving her pocket money, constantly putting on a noble and aloof front. Anyone who didn't know would think she owed him 8 million. How exasperating. That's why, when looking for a Jingjun, one must find someone virtuous. Someone who constantly controls and lectures her is not upholding husbandly virtues. In the old days, such a person would be exiled to the cold palace. Huan grumbled as she ran down the mountain. If she couldn't afford to provoke him, couldn't she at least avoid him? If he didn't give her a pleasant look, someone else surely would. This old auntie is dashing and incredibly rich. Still afraid no one will flock to her? At worst, she'd just buy on credit. Anyway, with Huan's formidable reputation, who would dare not give her face? Thinking this, Huan ran to Dream City with almost no hesitation. Linyang had arranged Chundan in a separate courtyard in the mansion, serving him with good food and drink as befits a male attendant. Huan walked in furiously, making Linyang's heart pound. She didn't dare to mention the spirit stones, and quickly sent someone to fetch Chundan. She didn't want to run into the palace mistress's anger. Chundan today wore light purple brocade robes, which truly made him appear as dazzling and enchanting as a demon. "Your servant greets master." He knelt on both knees, humbly prostrating himself at her feet. Huan's anger dissipated by more than half upon hearing his gentle words and soft voice. She personally bent down and helped him up. "From now on, you don't need to be so restrained. There aren't so many rules here with me." Seeing this, Linyang wisely and quietly retreated. Chundan then naturally took her arm and settled her on a stone stool, very considerately massaging her shoulders and waist. He asked in a soft, gentle voice, "Palace mistress, why were you so angry just now?" Huan thought of Chengyu's ice-cold face again and huffed indignantly. "It's nothing, just someone ignorant of what's good for him and arrogant." Chundan thoughtfully blinked his eyelashes. "The person palace mistress refers to, Is Zheng Juan's movements paused. She turned to look at him. You know, Chun nodded. I've long heard of Zheng Juan's prestige. Your servant also greatly admires him. Juan rolled her eyes on the spot. Why do you admire him? In this palace mistress's opinion, he's not as good as you. Palace mistress, you flatter your servant too much. Chundan lowered his thick eyelashes. I've heard that immortal venerable Chengyu is peerlessly elegant, and palace mistress loves him deeply. How could your servant compare to him? Seeing him so humble, Huan instantly felt a protective affection for beauty, fully displaying her skill in sweet talk. What nonsense are you speaking? Chunna has red lips and white teeth, a face like polished jade. This palace mistress is very pleased to see you. Chundan was somewhat shy from her praise, his blushing face as radiant as a begonia flower. Gazing at this beauty like spring scenery, Huan couldn't hold back for a moment. Just as she was about to make a flirtatious move, a cold gust of wind swept past, and the powerful airflow forcibly separated the two. Chundan was directly thrown to the ground, while Huan barely managed to steady herself. She hastily looked up and saw a figure holding a long sword, slowly descending from midair. In flowing white robes, elegant like an exiled immortal. Who else could it be but Chengyu? Huan's eyes nearly popped out in surprise, and she couldn't speak very smoothly. You. Then she immediately reacted, hastily saying, You, listen to me, I just... Shut up. Chengyu glanced at her expressionlessly, the tip of his sword slowly pointing at Chundan. His already cold voice was now even deeper and colder, like a frigid pool. You have a death wish. Chundan was slow to get up from the ground, one hand clutching his chest. His alluring, captivating eyes, however, stared directly at Huan, a clearly pitiful expression on his face. Master, Chengyu's brow furrowed fiercely. His starry eyes were icy cold. In an instant, a cold gleam and sword shadows appeared. His first move was a killing blow. You, hold your hand. Huan urgently cried out, flashing and moving in front of Chundan, deflecting the fatal blow for him. A faint dark red glow appeared in Chengyu's pupils. Get lost. Huan, shouted it like that, couldn't keep her composure. She craned her neck and retorted. Why are you being so fierce? Look at yourself now. Constantly threatening to kill. Are you still the bright and virtuous, immortal venerable you once were? How could you become so unreasonable? Master, don't speak of his venerable self like that. Chundan, shielded behind her, weakly pleaded, appearing kind and innocent to the ways of the world. I'm unreasonable. Perhaps the scene was too absurd. Chengyu laughed out of extreme anger, and the oppressive aura around him made Huan gasp for breath. You are, though. Despite being somewhat suppressed, Huan stubbornly spouted nonsense. So what if I came out to have some fun? If you weren't constantly lecturing me, controlling me, pretending to be noble and not satisfying me, why would I need to sneak out? It's bad enough you snatch my rights, and you don't even let me entertain myself. Do you know how long I've tolerated you? Chengyu's fingers gripping the sword hilt trembled slightly, his knuckles turning faintly white, veins throbbing. He didn't speak for a long time, only gazed at her deeply, his dark, inky eyes like a bottomless abyss. Finally, he parted his lips slightly, and a flash of sword light carved a dazzling arc in the air. Huan thought he was about to make a move, and, scared, retreated 2 steps. However, he did not strike at her, but instead cut off a corner of his robe. Very well. Since that is the case, you and I shall cut ties today. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Huan's pupils constricted, her eyes instantly reddened, and she almost jumped up and yelled at him. Cutting ties indeed. Who are you trying to scare? Do you think I'll just surrender meekly if you threaten me with that? Let me tell you, don't even think about it, you. Before Huan could finish yelling, Chengyu had already retracted his long sword, turned indifferently, summoned auspicious clouds from the horizon, and ascended like an immortal, riding the wind away. Huan's heart inexplicably skipped a beat. Like a tiger trapped within walls, she became incredibly agitated. Do you think I'm scared just because you casually talk about cutting ties? If you're so capable, then never come looking for me again. Chundan, who had by now risen from the ground, suggested quite considerately, Master, perhaps you should still go after him and see. Your servant will be fine here. Why should this palace mistress go after him? Huan shouted, especially loudly. Let him go if he wants, or not. I don't care at all. That night, for the first time ever, Huan drank a lot of wine. After marrying Yu, she hadn't drunk much, but today her heart felt suffocated. So, served by Chundan, she drank cup after cup, attempting to quell the deep-seated restlessness and unease within her. With a slight tipsiness, she couldn't help but think of Yu's clear and serene features. It was that peerlessly beautiful countenance that had once captivated her completely. Even after being with him for so long, She had not felt a single moment of boredom. She truly missed him a bit. She must have been poisoned. At this moment, her mind was full of him. In fact, she already regretted her impulsive actions earlier that day. At the time, she didn't know why, but as soon as she saw his aloof and noble appearance, a surge of furious irritation rushed over her. She lost all sense of propriety in her words, ranting and railing at him, saying whatever would hurt him most, to the point where, like spilled water, it couldn't be collected, and she could only stubbornly refuse to admit fault. "Master, will you be staying tonight?" Chunden's voice was soft, his captivating eyes rippled with emotion, filled with affection as he looked at her. Huan lifted her eyelids and glanced, immediately losing all interest. She pushed away the wine pot in front of her and stood up to walk out. "No, you should rest early." With that, she turned around mercilessly. After a tiger's leap, she quickly disappeared into the boundless night. Huan endured the cold wind all the way, rushing back to Huan Palace at top speed. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She decided to go apologize to Yu. As long as she went back and coaxed him a bit, he should forgive her, right? After all, it wasn't the first or second time she'd acted foolishly. Each time, although Yu looked cold, he had never truly reprimanded her harshly. She thought this time wouldn't be an exception. Thinking this, Huan arrived at Huan Hall with flying steps. She aired out the smell of alcohol from her body and tiptoed towards the bedchamber. Usually, at this time, Yu would leave a wall-mounted candle lit, but today the bedchamber was pitch black with no light to be seen. Huan's heart dropped, and she immediately panicked. She waved her hand, illuminating a lantern. The bedchamber was completely empty. No Yu and no cubs. "Ah he!" She dashed out in a stride, shouting helplessly. "Ashi!" Wuxi seemed to be nearby. She walked in silently, holding a wooden box with both hands. Upon closer inspection, inside was Yu's usual Wuchen robes. Huan ran over in a few quick steps, grabbed the clothes, and questioned, "How is Wuchen in your hands?" Wuxi sighed, looking at her with a hint of pity. "Palace mistress, his venerable self has left." "Impossible!" Huan yelled, her eyes red. Yu had promised he would never leave her. Wuxi shook her head regretfully. "Palace mistress, when his venerable self left, he instructed his subordinate to return this Wuchen to you. In the box are also the accounts for this period, all meticulously organized by his venerable self." Huan flipped open the robes and indeed saw a neatly stacked pile of account books underneath. Every account, year, and month was clearly marked with a slender, forceful brushstroke. Alas, his venerable self originally wanted to lead Huan Palace to unite the immortal and demonic realms, but now... Huan suddenly looked up. He said he wanted to lead Huan Palace to unite the immortal and demonic realms? Wuxi sighed again. He didn't explicitly say so, but that was probably the implication. When his venerable self first held court, he already hinted at this intention, advising them to be more far-sighted, to be broad-minded and inclusive. Only then could they secure a place among the reputable sects. Later, his venerable self personally visited immortal sects multiple times and negotiated with various factions, likely also for the great cause of unification. Whoa! Huan suddenly burst into loud sobs. She remembered. She had told Yu when they talked about dreams that her first dream was to unite the immortal and demonic realms in her lifetime. So, he had toiled day and night, exhausting his mental and physical energy these days, just to help her achieve her dream. But she not only didn't understand his painstaking efforts, she always misunderstood him and resented him for taking control of Huan Palace. Whoa, she truly was a complete idiot tiger. "Palace mistress, please don't cry." Wuxi was also bewildered. It was the first time she'd seen the palace mistress wail like a child. "Whoa, Ashi, why didn't you stop Yu when he left?" Wuxi fell silent at her words. She would have liked to stop him, but could she even have? Moreover, Huan had gone too far this time. She only found out later, after asking Lin Yang, that the palace mistress had secretly kept a male paramour in the separate courtyard. And for this male paramour, she had an unbridled quarrel with his venerable self. Wuxi gazed at her helplessly. After a long moment, she could only comfort her. "Palace mistress, please rest assured, when his venerable self left this time, he only took the little masters. He did not touch a single bit of Huan Palace's assets." But unexpectedly, Huan wailed even louder after hearing this. "Woo Ashi, what do I do? I lost Yu, and I lost the cubs too." Wuxi saw her crying like a kitten with a snotty face and almost cried along with her. "Palace mistress, don't worry for now. How about we let Xiao Yinzi look for them? Although, they probably wouldn't be found. If his venerable self intended to retreat from the world, it would be hard for anyone to find his whereabouts." Huan instantly stopped crying, looked up, and wiped her face. "Right, I remember Yu's scent. I'm going to find him now." As she spoke, she grabbed Wuchen, transformed into a large white tiger, and leaped into the boundless night, so fast that Wuxi couldn't even react. Palace mistress, it's already late. It wouldn't be too late to look tomorrow. On the boundless plains, a large white tiger was galloping at full speed, stirring up a strong wind as if riding on clouds. Huan had been racing for 3 days and 3 nights straight, braving wind and weather all the way, without taking a moment to rest. She had recently caught a faint trace of Yu's whereabouts, and following the cold fragrance that came and went, she had been relentlessly on the move. Besides this familiar scent, Huan also smelled the aura of her own cub, so she was almost certain that Yu must have appeared somewhere nearby. After crossing the plains, a forest appeared not far ahead. However, this was clearly no ordinary forest. An ominous cold energy surrounded its exterior. If an ordinary person were to pass by, this sinister energy would surely invade their bones, affecting their lifespan. The great white tiger pawed at the sandy earth with its claws, seemingly gauging the level of danger within the forest. After about half an hour of hesitation, it finally tensed its body, let out a low growl, and charged in. Although there might be danger inside, Yu's aura had suddenly vanished here, making it hard to say that it had no connection to this eerie forest. Huan gathered all her strength and rushed into the forest. She had initially prepared herself to face countless demons and monsters, but who would have thought that the moment she stepped in, the forest suddenly dissipated like an illusion, replaced by a scene as beautiful as a fairyland. Lush green grass, a small bridge over a flowing stream, and a small wooden house not far away, from whose courtyard melodious zither music drifted, like sounds from heaven. Huan's heart stirred. She instantly transformed into human form and hurried towards the wooden house. She was almost certain that the person playing the zither in the courtyard right now was Chengyu. His aura was so strong that she was almost delirious with joy, on the verge of bursting through the door. Just then, the courtyard gate suddenly swung open. Accompanied by an awu, 2 agile little tiger cubs immediately pounced towards her. They looked fierce and formidable, their dark, gleaming eyes staring at her with extreme vigilance, baring their teeth. Their little expressions were as wary as could be. Huan picked them up, one in each hand, by the scruff of their necks, disregarding the 2 little ones' fierce resistance. She scolded them with great displeasure. "You 2 ungrateful tigers. You don't even recognize your own mommy? How dare you growl at me? Believe it or not, I'll swallow you both, one bite at a time." The little ones struggled even more fiercely, letting out a woo baby roars, their little heads shaking back and forth, clearly unwilling to submit to her. Huan hissed, about to say something more, when she saw a white silken ribbon sweep past. She instinctively dodged to the side, and the little cubs seized the opportunity to quickly wriggle free from her grasp, scampering back to their daddy's side. Meanwhile, Huan wasn't so lucky. She dodged left and right, following the white ribbon, until her body was bound up like a silkworm cocoon, with only her head sticking out. With a thump, Huan, completely bound by the white ribbon, inevitably toppled onto the ground. But her eyes eagerly wanted to glance upwards, and sure enough, she saw the face she had been thinking about day and night these past days. You really are here." Huan's eyes suddenly lit up, and she flashed him a big smile. However, a certain someone showed no appreciation. He merely cast her a cold, downcast glance, and with a wave of his hand, imprisoned her in a cage that appeared out of nowhere. Huan wriggled her body, found that he had bound her too tightly, making her utterly unable to move, so she could only look at him pitifully and say, "Yu, I went through so much trouble to find you. Why are you tying me up?" Chengyu's face was devoid of expression, his pale finger bones also glowing with a chilling coldness. "Originally, out of consideration for our acquaintance, I did not wish to annihilate you, but I did not expect you to walk right into my trap today." "Yu, I didn't walk into a trap. I specifically came to find you, to apologize." Huan cried out in injustice, but was silenced by a single glance from Chengyu. "Before tomorrow morning, you will end yourself. Otherwise, this venerable one will not mind doing it personally." Huan seemed to be startled by these words. Her peach blossom eyes wide open, she stared at him without blinking. Gradually, her entire face crumpled up, and she pouted her lips aggrievedly. Utterly out of place, she blurted out, "Yu, I'm hungry." The scene was silent for a brief moment. Huan, seeing that he said nothing, began to grumble and complain to him. "Yu, in order to find you, I haven't eaten meat for 3 days and 3 nights. I'm really, really hungry." Chengyu let out a cold laugh. "What does your hunger have to do with this venerable one? Do you think this venerable one's place is a tiger farm?" Huan glanced at the little tiger cubs squatting at his feet. "You're already raising 2 tiger cubs. What's wrong with raising 1 more?" Without waiting for her to finish, Chengyu turned directly and took the two little ones back into the courtyard, leaving Huan alone in the cage, wailing and howling. Unconsciously, night fell. Huan had been howling all night, but no one paid her any attention at all. It was already midnight. She was not only starving and cold in the cage, but her body had also stiffened due to being bound for so long. She was truly as miserable as could be. Just as she was actively contemplating how to save herself, there was suddenly some movement at the courtyard entrance. She held her breath and stared outside. Unexpectedly, the two little things suddenly darted over. Huan's eyes lit up. She subconsciously wanted to get closer to them, but because her entire body was wrapped in the white ribbon, she could only wriggle over bit by bit like a caterpillar, gazing eagerly at the two little cubs. She said with extreme enthusiasm, "Cubs, come here, come here." The little white tigers stood side by side in front of the cage. They pawed a couple of times with their claws, let out a snort from their noses, and arrogantly tilted their little heads. Huan clicked her tongue, sticking it out slightly, temporarily suppressing the urge to give these two little tiger cubs a good beating, and cooed with a smile. "Good Tuan Tuan, good Yuan Yuan, come over and help Mommy get this white ribbon off. Mommy usually dotes on you so much. You can't be so heartless." She had tried many times. There was no barrier around the cage. The main problem was that the white ribbon on her body had been enchanted by Yu. Struggling out from the inside was definitely impossible. But if the two little ones bit it open from the outside, destroying the original spell, it would make things much easier. However, the two little cubs showed no appreciation at all. They let out soft, oh-woo sounds at her, seeming to express some dissatisfaction. Huan naturally understood what they meant and helplessly explained, "Mommy didn't intentionally abandon you. I really missed you. It was your daddy who got angry and took you away. Didn't I come all this way, thousands of miles, to find you?" The two little white tigers moved their paws. Their dark, gleaming eyes simultaneously looked at her, seeming to ponder the truthfulness of her words. Seeing this, Huan quickly struck while the iron was hot. "Cubs, if you don't come over and help me, you won't have a mommy anymore." The two little ones were clearly scared by these words. Their little ears perked straight up. Soon, they slipped through the gaps in the cage, ran, snorting and puffing to her front, and lowered their heads, nuzzling close to her face. Huan was melted by their cute little appearance. She kissed each one all over, and promised with emotion, "Woo-woo, my good cubs, from now on, Mommy will play with you every day." The two little cubs were immediately happy. They stuck out their pink little tongues and licked her, then one by one, they jumped onto her and began to bite and tear at the white ribbon. This white ribbon was, after all, set up by Chengyu. It was wrapped tightly and securely. The little cubs used all their might, pressing with their paws while biting with their teeth. Their newly grown fangs were almost pulled out, and only then did it loosen just a tiny bit. Huan felt a little heartache watching them, and continuously cheered them on. "Go, go, go. My cubs are the best." The tiger cubs, hearing their mommy's encouragement, worked even harder and soon tore open a crack in the white ribbon. Huan was overjoyed. Just as she was about to exert force and break free from her cocoon, she saw the two little ones suddenly stop their actions, look back toward a certain spot, and ran over with the woo sounds. Seeing this situation, Huan secretly thought, "This is bad." Sure enough, the moment she looked up, she met a pair of clear, deep eyes. The two little ones beside him were softly whimpering at his feet, looking up at him eagerly, seeming to plead for their mommy. Chengyu's face, however, remained impassive. His thin lips parted coldly. "Go stay inside the house yourselves." Huan was somewhat displeased and quietly grumbled, "Why are you so fierce to the cubs?" Chengyu's gaze shot towards her like icicles. "Who gave you the confidence to still dare speak to this venerable one like this?" The oppressive power in his words was immense. Even the surrounding flowers and trees completely stilled. Yet the next moment, with a boom, the white ribbon, along with the entire cage, instantly shattered into pieces. Chengyu's eyes narrowed slightly. A long sword suddenly appeared in his hand, and he flew forward to meet the agile figure rushing straight towards him. However, Huan had no intention of fighting him at all. After dodging the sword's edge with a sidestep, she directly crashed into his embrace. After tangling in the air for a moment, they had no choice but to gracefully descend. Huan allowed him to grasp the back of her neck, and her hands tightly clasped around his waist. "You, please forgive me. I don't want to fight you anymore." Chengyu's icy fingertips were gripping her most vulnerable spot. With just a little more force, she would surely die. Yet, precisely at this critical moment, he was unable to take another step forward. He knew he couldn't possibly kill her. If he could have killed her, he could have done so the moment he saw her, or even before leaving the Acacia Palace. But he hadn't. From that moment on, he knew he couldn't kill her, not in this lifetime. Huan naturally felt the chilling aura around her dissipate, and the strength in his hand also weakened little by little. Overjoyed, she raised her head and secretly looked at him, then pressed on persistently. You, everything before was my fault. I won't raise other men anymore. I swear this time it's true. Chengyu's crimson lips pursed into a thin line, and he remained silent for a long time. Huan couldn't help but defend herself. Besides, I didn't do anything out of line. Chundan and I were completely innocent. We didn't even kiss. Seeing Chengyu's eyebrows furrow, she quickly tried to salvage the situation. I drank too much that day. That's why I said those foolish things. Once we go back, you can punish me to kneel on a washboard for however many days you want. The little tiger cubs saw their daddy and mommy hugging again, and couldn't help but happily run over, circling around them, front and back, left and right. Although mommy seemed rather unreliable, they still hoped daddy and mommy would be together. Huan called out cautiously. After a long while, Chengyu's tightly furrowed brows finally slowly relaxed, and his gaze also gradually deepened. Do you think this venerable one will still believe your sweet talk? Huan knew there was a chance as soon as she heard this. She grabbed his hand and placed it on her chest and vowed solemnly, this heart of mine will always be yours. If I ever act foolishly again, then you can dig out my heart. I will have no complaints. His palm was separated from her skin by only a layer of clothing. Chengyu felt her fiery heartbeat and the rising and falling peaks. His earlobes flushed. He subtly withdrew his hand, glanced to the side, and spoke in a deep voice. This is the last time. These 4 short words made Huan so happy, she almost jumped for joy. She hugged his neck, kissing him all over. You're too good. Let's go back to Acacia Palace now. Chengyu exhaled softly and gently patted her paw. Let go first. Hearing this, Huan not only didn't loosen her grip, but instead quickly wrapped her arms around his waist, hugging him even tighter. She said earnestly, batting her peach blossom eyes, I won't let go. What if I let go and you run off again? Chengyu's eyelashes lowered slightly. His gaze was profound and inscrutable. If I wanted to leave, no matter how tightly you held me, you wouldn't be able to keep me. Huan's heart tightened. She stood on tiptoe and gently pressed her lips against his thin lips. What about this? Can this keep you? Chengyu's dark eyes grew even darker. He suddenly clasped the back of her head as if to vent his frustration, and a low, hoarse echo came from his throat. Still no. Huan pouted. I know. He was telling her that he wouldn't indulge her without limits. Can we go home now? The cheerful cries of the little white tigers lingered endlessly. From now on, they could finally play with daddy and mommy again.